Hey everyone, welcome back to Beat the Sheet, an Xbox Game Pass challenge. The only podcast aiming to complete every single one of the 500 titles that have been made available on Xbox Game Pass since the start of 2020. As always, I'm your host Andy Wood, and I'm joined by my co-host Josh. Or am I? Where are you?
I'm debating whether to be here. Don't know. If I speak, I'm in, and if I don't speak, I could still be out. Oh god, 500? Oh man,
500 man, of course. So Sony brought us the 500th game, as makes sense in this world apparently. But yeah, anyway, on this week's show, it's the return of gaming's second most popular cloud in Final Fantasy VII. We're going to be going to bat for big rounders in MLB The Show. And Sony run a grift that is just so spectacular, even 2K Games would be jealous.
And those guys, they can run a grift, so you know it's good.
Oh,
you know it's good.
Absolute grift masters. So, how are you doing this week, Josh? Welcome to 500.
I know long-time listeners will know that I've been threatening to quit the minute we hit 500 games for a long time now, and I still plan to, but after consulting with my attorneys, Herlock Sholmes, he's indicated to me that this 500 does include 32 Nope games, which I don't technically have to play. So officially, the podcast remains on 468. And Andrew, being the tyrant that he is, has demanded I at least wait to 500. So we're getting closer, but we're not quite there yet. I mean, my representation says I can't quite depart at this point.
That's how we do it. You know, you nearly got away, and then I just picked up my Nintendo DS, shouted objection into that microphone port, and here you are. You're stuck.
I'm back again. But how's your week been?
Yeah, my week's been all right, man. Not too bad. Fairly quiet week for Game Pass at the moment. So I've had some time to do other things. But that's been counteracted by the fact that my favorite of potentially all the sport at this point is back now, which is the Overwatch League. So I've been watching an insane amount of Overwatch, which is always fun. You know, if you ever get depressed, you know, as you're kind of getting older, I feel like, you know, you start to get more depressed by watching any sport because people get to the age you are now and everyone starts going, oh, they need to retire now, they're done, they've had it, you know, they can't keep playing in the 30s. And then you move over to esports, a world where players get to the age of about 23 and everyone goes, oh, they're washed up, it's over, they can't do this anymore. And I, you know, if you don't feel old watching stuff like football, tune into a bit of esports. It's depressing as hell. So yeah, I've been watching a whole lot of 18-year-old Korean guys kick the shit out of people in Overwatch. It's been good fun.
That's always fun. I mean, I found when I was younger, growing up watching football, I'd pick up the idiosyncrasies of my dad, who would always refer to any football as a kid. It didn't matter how old they are. They could have been 18 or 32. There was always a kid to him. And I was doing it. But at the time, I was 18, so it was kind of ridiculous. I've hit the point now where certain footballers could actually be my child.
Yeah.
And that's a very depressing moment when you just look and you go, oh, God, the kid's got a lot of potential. It's like, oh, God, he is a child compared to me. What has happened? I used to have potential. And I squandered it on a podcast about Game Pass. Oh my god! But you know what can you do? You try not to get too heads up on these things.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you just gotta sit here and just play some video game sports. That's how you get through it. You play those and you pretend you're good at the sport itself. That's how we do things here.
Not in the case of MLB The Show, because I'm terrible at that game.
Oh yeah, well, I'm sure we'll get to that pretty soon anyway. So yeah, let's get rolled into the show.
Okay, we've had one new addition to the Xbox Game Pass service this week, and it is MLB The Show 21. Well, it's been a long time coming, and I don't think anything could prepare me for how strange it was when that Sony Interactive Entertainment Presents popped up, followed by the PlayStation Studios logo on my Xbox. That was a bizarre moment, but it's here. Baseball is finally here on Xbox Game Pass. Pretty cool additions. Day one. You can never argue with day one.
No, I mean, that's it, right? Like, it's a strange week this week because I think, obviously, you know, baseball coming to Xbox, fantastic. Baseball coming to Game Pass, even better. You know, a Sony game, a Sony exclusive formally coming to Xbox. Again, all fantastic things. I was the same as you when that logo showed up. I just felt weird. You know, this flashy Sony logo showing off like their iconic characters in the middle of the logo thing, and you're sat on your Xbox Series console. Very weird. But what I would say though at the same time is it's a really sucky week if you don't like baseball because there's nothing else. I mean, there's absolutely no other games this week. I don't know, man. Lately, this is obviously a big hitter, and Outriders was a big hitter at the start of April. But I feel like April has to go down as a bit of an L for Game Pass on the new editions front. Really, we've had some quiet weeks here. I've been seeing the tumbleweed go past week by week as we've been covering this stuff. But still, this is obviously a very, very high profile game, so I can't be too mean on it.
I guess it depends how much stock you place in the day one release. There's been a lot of day one releases in April. I mean, this is about the third or the fourth at this point, if you can class the indie titles as well. So that's cool. That's pretty nice. I mean, there's not many games coming out in general. So to be getting day one games into your subscription service, you practically played everything worth playing, because it is a dry spell for the industry at the moment as the pandemic really bites into development lead times. So, it's pretty cool to have day one titles still launching in, but admittedly, there's not been many games this month from Xbox. I'm okay with that. Frankly, I think they've released too many. But, to keep them at one a week for me, I'm pretty okay with that.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, yeah, I guess it does have its positives. It does keep our overall numbers down that we have to beat. But still, hopefully May will see a bit more content.
Absolutely. But let's talk about MLB The Show 21 now. Us being Brits, we've never really paid much attention to the sport of baseball, though I have seen a live baseball game where there was not a single home run scored. So I've always held a slight grudge against the sport for that. But what did you make of this? We're obviously not familiar with it in particular. It's not a series I've ever played. It's not a series I'm certain you've ever played. How did MLB The Show stack up for you?
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one, isn't it? Because we've grew up obviously playing a hell of a lot of EA sports titles, and even when it comes to EA sports titles, I've played quite a few that aren't my usual wheelhouse. I played the odd Madden game when I was younger. Played a lot of Tiger Woods golf games, even though I didn't love golf. Whereas baseball just never, this sport gets no runtime over here in the UK. You don't see it on your TVs. You're not going to see these titles on your sort of store shelves in the game shops. So I've never been inclined at all to even try one. So this was a new experience, and it was definitely interesting to see a sports title come from a place that isn't 2K or EA Sports, because we never see that really. And going into this, I was reasonably hyped. I mean, I know that for the longest time, people have held this series up as the pinnacle of sort of simulation baseball. And maybe it is, I don't know. I've played a single game. It's the best of the one games I've played about baseball that are more simulation focused. But I just struggle a bit with this game, man. And I don't even know if it's the game's fault or if it's the sports itself's fault, because I just feel like you don't do a lot, to be honest. I feel like, you do some batting, that kind of feels the same every time. Very little changes. You do some pitching, you kind of basically just do the same 4 pitches every time, but maybe aim them in slightly different places to try and throw the batter off. And then you just do that a ton of times. Like, I don't know. This might sound hypocritical because we actually ended up giving Cricket 19 quite a good review and saying that it was quite, like when you're trying to sort of lock into position, you're trying to just score the odd run, or maybe you're trying to swing for the fences because you've got a big score you need to hit. Like, we were saying that cricket was really exciting for that. And I kind of stand by that. I don't think this game has that same appeal. I'm not trying to grind out a game and then I'm turning the screw and going for big massive shots. I'm kind of just doing the same thing every time, and that might just be that I'm naive and I don't fully, I don't get all of the little bits of this sport. But yeah, still, I don't know, struggled a bit with this.
Yeah, certainly not understanding the intricacies of the sport was a difficulty. MLB The Show makes no aim to really explain to you what any of this means. Not really. I mean, it tells you how to play the game, but it doesn't tell you what the game is, which I suppose would be a strange thing for a simulation sports title to do. Yeah. But good God, I could have done with a menu option of what is baseball? I could have really done with that, because there's a lot of letters and meaningless jargon in this game, which meant absolutely nothing to me and still means nothing to me, even as I picked up kind of more idiosyncrasy of the actual rules as we went along. For example, I almost played exclusively as a pitcher. I didn't realize that if you was to pitch outside of the pitching square and they swung and missed at it, that would count as a strike.
Okay.
But if they didn't, it doesn't count. I didn't pick up on that for 6 hours. I was just calling everything into the pitching square because I just figured, well, I can't get a strike otherwise. So I was just absolutely hammering the square every single time, not really varying up my shots. So things like that is where my difficulty came into. And obviously, I'm about 10 hours, I think, into this sodding game now. And I'm slowly kind of understanding what baseball is. But that's a lot of time to be playing the game fundamentally wrong, but without anybody going, "What is this guy doing?" Oh my God!
God, throw a ball every now and then. Jesus, come on, what are you doing? But I mean, look, I maybe didn't quite have those levels of trouble. I maybe understood the sport slightly more than you. It's amazing that you've been to a baseball game, by the way. But, but yeah, like,
I was there for the hot dogs, dude. Like that's literally it. You know, they were good hot dogs, and it was an Oakland A's game. And back then, that team sucked. I don't know if they're any good now, but they sucked when I visited about 4 years ago. So I don't know if I did see baseball. Shout out to any Oakland A's fans who I'm just ragging on who are listening to the show. Go.
Hopefully they're good now. That'd be nice for them. But yeah, look, I mean, my issue with this game just comes from the fact that, as you said there, you know, you're throwing these pitches, and fair enough, for the first few hours, you maybe weren't doing all of the kind of tactics and game playing that you could do, like obviously trying to trick people into swinging for balls that you've thrown out of the area and stuff. But even when you start doing that, like, the issue is that just too much of it is exactly the same, right? I mean, I'm trying to think how many pitches you actually throw in a single game, and it's a lot. It's a whole lot of pitches you throw in a single game. And then you look at how many games are in a season of baseball, because for some reason, and I'll never understand why, they seem to just play the same game every night, like repeatedly. I don't get the schedule. It's like you go to a town, play one game, and then you just play them for the next 2 days as well. Like, go home. You've played them. It's done. I don't understand. So like that's crazy. And like, yeah, just I don't know, man. Because I went for a bat. I've only played as a batsman or a batter, so that's been a bit easier, because at least we're mainly talking about the road to the show mode here, which is the kind of be a pro, play as a single character version of this game. And at least when you're at bat, you basically take your shots, and then when you're out, the game skips to like 3 innings forward until you're up again. So that makes it obviously a lot quicker than being a pitcher. I don't know how you've actually managed to cope for 10 hours of pitching, but even so, like I've played for about 7 or 8 hours, and I'm only through about a third of the season with like some crappy AA team, and apparently I'm seasons away from getting called up to the MLB at this point. So that's just not even on the cards at the moment. And I don't know. I don't know how much of this I can take, man. I feel like I've done absolutely everything that the game is offering me, and it's now just a case of keep doing that while your character very, very slowly gets better, which I just don't know if I'm willing to do that.
Yeah, the character progression in this is hilariously slow. Like this guy gains no abilities. I've played about 17 matches on my road to the show mode, and I've yet to gain a point. I'm still on 55. I started on 55. I remain on 55. I feel like I don't know what more I can do. I'm throwing some fantastic games, and yet still I'm getting nothing for it. So it's very strange.
So one thing I learned just today when I was browsing some stuff online for this game, just to check that I hadn't kind of missed anything obvious with regards to the player build up and how you level up. Because my guy, like I said, I've played about a third of a season now, and he's gone up from a 55 rated player to I think a 57 he might have got to this morning. And obviously, because I'm playing a batsman, I'm getting through way more games than you are. And I looked online. Apparently, I mean, this is ridiculous because this is obviously a simulation basketball game. Apparently, the best way to level up your character is to use him in the Diamond Dynasty mode, which is some kind of card-based thing. Like they use like trading cards like Ultimate Team. Apparently, it's got elements of it that are like a battle pass from Battle Royales, where there's like daily challenges to do, and you get experience for doing the daily challenges. So yeah, apparently the best way to level up my character in this quite serious simulation baseball game is to go and do a friggin' battle pass and just do daily challenges like a mobile game. So that's not great. Apparently, if you do that, you do level up a hell of a lot faster. But I mean, that's just a bit. I mean, I'm not here for that. It's not why I'm playing this game. I don't know why I'm playing this game, but I imagine nobody's playing it to do that sort of stuff. It just feels completely out of place.
Yeah, look, I think clearly the progression system in the Road to the Show mode is aimed for the long-term player. It's
Yeah.
for somebody who is planning to play this game for 12 months rather than we are for about 12 hours. So I can definitely understand that, but it is a little miserly. And obviously time progression into your card modes is always a little bit on the kind of, dodgy side, but welcome to sports games in
Yeah.
2021, essentially. They all do that. So that's a bit of a blow. But I mean, look, when you're actually playing the game, swinging the bat, I miss about 80% of the time. But again, I think that's the sport. I
Yeah,
think you're kind of meant to miss most of the time. And when you do hit, I'd say about 20% of them go for runs and the other 80% are caught or you're ran out. That, again, I think is the sport. So you kind of just have to accept that. Pitching, as mentioned, it can be a bit of a slog. I like setting myself challenges to have like no hits or as few hits as possible and to keep the score down. But let me tell you, when you are pitching for 9 innings and it's a long old stretch and you're pitching every single ball, and every time you go away to the batting team, you come back and they've not scored. And you're just endlessly trying. You're keeping this team on naught and you're somehow not winning. And you finally give up a run and you lose the match 1-0. And you just look at your batting team and go, what is wrong with you people? What more can I do for you? I've literally given you everything and you're still not scoring a run. So there's definitely frustrations even that you can't do anything about that. That part of the game can be taken away from you. Like it's fine. It's perfectly enjoyable. But yeah, as with you, I was kind of losing interest towards the starting to hit the double hour marks now. And I'm pretty bored of it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the same. I mean, I would say, if we're going to go over some stuff that I do like about this game, I would say that the presentation for the most part is solid. Like the match day presentations are pretty good, especially if you're playing a proper MLB game. The only bit that stuck out to me in terms of the presentation so far is they make an absolute meal of your character's name. Whatever name you choose to use, they read it like they're from a 90s sports game. Like it's just the most disjointed like piece of audio. Like my guy, I just called him Andy Wood because that's my name. They're always like, oh, next up at the plate is Andy Wood. And it's just like, what is that? And then it's the exact same every time. Like it's a bit rough, but what can you do? Other than that, the presentation's pretty solid. They have a ton of control options, which I guess is kind of cool. It's a bit overwhelming at first when you start the game up because the game instantly is like, right, which of these 5 types of batting do you want to do? Which of these 7 types of pitching would you like to do? It's a bit much, but nonetheless, it gives people a lot of options. You can go for a simple batting system where you just press the direction you want to kind of like left or right or straight forward and just hit, or you can use one where you have a little zone marker and you have to try and track the ball and then hit it, which I use that one. That kind of felt like the most natural control style, although it was a bit difficult. Pitching, again, you've got really simple options where you just press a button at the right time, all the way up to ones where you have to use like the right analog stick to do the exact kind of twisting motion of that particular pitch to throw it properly. That's all good stuff. A lot of variety, really like that. They've made a good effort at having a kind of dynamic difficulty system as well, which I did like the idea of at first. Like it basically starts you off at the bottom level, and then if you're doing a good job, they level up individual elements of the game. So your batting might end up on like intermediate difficulty, but your pitching still on beginner because you're not doing a good job of it. And it kind of just plays with all these different difficulty meters as you play through the game. I did like that at first. My only issue with it was that it kind of started to act a bit like the Fun Police, like because I was playing as like a batter, and anytime I'd get a good hit, they'd go, "Well, we're pushing that difficulty up." So I just never got to actually enjoy being any good at the game. I mean, obviously my character was this garbage 57 rated man, so he wasn't good anyway. But like, yeah, I felt like whenever I got a good hit, it would then take me about 7 games to do anything again because they'd ramp me up to like, I think I ended up on like all-star difficulty for batting, even though I was barely getting a hit because it just kept ramping it up. So eventually I just went in and turned that off and just put it on like the medium difficulty manually because, again, good idea, but just a bit frustrating that it wouldn't let me have any fun. But there you go. Some good things.
Yeah, no, those are all pretty good things. I mean, the difficulty sliders are, as you say, they work. They'll try and tailor you and keep you pushing along and keep pushing yourself to get better. I appreciate that. The presentation is great. It's got a fantastic soundtrack, loads of great songs on this fantastic mix of tunes to listen to as you're just doing the same thing over and over again, which is always nice. The commentary, yeah, it's okay in parts. Occasionally, I learned things about the game from the commentary, which I kind of appreciated. So that was good. Yeah. That was pretty much the only tutorial of the sport I got, was just listening to the commentary, so that helped. The Road to the Show mode has all these podcasts which pop up, where the analysts, and I assume people in the game, I'm not entirely certain, they could all be made up for all I know, discuss your character's journey and what you're doing well. And that's kind of cool. I kind of like that. If you have a bad game, a couple of games, they'll talk about how you're in a bit of a slump. And they seem to have loads of recorded different messages to keep that moving along. Shout out to my favorite analyst, who is she must have been a star batter in the female version of the MLB, because she was like listed as such. And her dog was just in the background of a shot, and this dog was dead. Just dead to the world. It was just completely zonked out, and I just absolutely loved that. I love that they could have like moved the dog along for the recording. It's like, no, keep the dog in. That's authentic. And I kind of love that. That was kind of cool. So there's plenty to like here. It's got all the teams, obviously all the licenses. It looks pretty good. This is an X and S version. It looks fine. It's not stunning, but it looks okay for what it is. It's a sports game. There's only so much you can do. There's stuff to like here. There's enough good stuff here. And I think if you're a fan of the sport, this must be fantastic. But if you are us, and it doesn't mean much to you, and essentially I don't know why people aren't just playing cricket, which is a much more entertaining version of this sport, I'm afraid to say, to not fall into our stereotypes too much. But this has nothing on cricket. And Cricket 19 is a more enjoyable game to me still. So if you want to play any version of Rounders, essentially cricket is still the better game for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, man. It's just not cricket. That's it. But look, it's got some good stuff about it, as we said. I think if you like baseball, there's no reason why you wouldn't like this game. Simply enough, we can only judge it as how we kind of, how we see it when we play the game. And for me, this is a well put together game that has been let down by the sport it represents. Like you look back at our thoughts on the NHL games recently, that's a sport we don't know over here in the UK. And we ended up loving that sport and loving those games. So it's not even just that we don't know the sport. It's just that, I don't know, it's very repetitive. And for people who aren't fans of it, I don't see this changing their mind.
No, I can't see it changing anybody's mind. One for the fans only, but very cool to see it on the platform. Very big pickup. Interesting to see if Sony continue developing these games now that it's gone multi-platform. If I was running and owning a studio, I would not be developing multi-plat games. You would just take them off this title and get them doing something else. But, we'll wait and see. Maybe they'll be continuing on irrespective. I'd score this game a 6 out of 10. I think it's pretty good. I think it's perfectly playable. But yeah, it's not necessarily the sport for me.
Yeah, I end up giving this a 5, which, it's a bit harsh maybe, but it's like I said, you've got to be a baseball fan to want to go anywhere near this. If you're not one, you're just going to get bored pretty quickly.
Absolutely. Okay, let's flag up some of the coming soon titles. Some of these were announced this week. So we've got Second Extinction, which is officially a game preview, but I think it's fairly fully formed, the launching it in, and that's coming on April 28th. The day after that, we have the remake of Destroy All Humans, which launched, I believe, last year. That is also coming into the service, and we are still expecting FIFA 21 from the glorious sport of football. Now, there's a sport.
There's a sport.
There's a bloody sport. Come on, the Tigers. Coming into Game Pass on sometime in May. We still don't officially know, but sometime in May. So what do you make of the two that we do know are coming in? Second Extinction, strange title. Does that mean the dinos are back and I have to kill all of them? Is that the goal? None can survive.
I think that's basically it. Yeah, I think it's mutant dinosaurs now, so maybe they just somehow survived, and now you gotta go kill them. Can't be having them surviving. Look, pretty cool week. Again, fairly quiet. 2 games is fine, but it's been the trend recently that we tend to get 1 game or 2 games. So little bit quiet, but look, Second Extinction, that's basically a day 1 launch title in that it's early access game preview stuff, but realistically it will be staying in Game Pass through to the point where they finish and actually finally push it into a full release. So that's pretty cool. And then I'm pretty excited about Destroy All Humans. I don't know, I like playing just goofy kind of mediocre platformers or like action games from about 15 years ago. It's a strange niche, but it's what I enjoy. I'm hoping we get like Stubbs the Zombie soon, get that in here. Just I'm all about this sort of stuff. Maybe a bit of Voodoo Vince. Just give me all those games. That's all good to me.
Give him the trash. I mean, shout us out on our socials and email if the fact that I beat Destroy All Humans on the PS2 the best part of 20 years ago should probably count as a completion. I kind of think it does. I think I can put a Y without even touching this, if only because it'd be hilarious to try and have me recall Destroy All Humans from 20 years ago, a game which was forgetful at the time, and now all I can remember is the anal probe, and I think that's all anybody could remember from Destroy All Humans. So I of course, will play the remake and see if it holds up. It absolutely won't. This game was dated when it came out. So I'm interested to see just how painful it is now. And I believe Second Extinction is mainly an online shooter. It's an online team-based, like kind of games game, isn't it? So I dare say we'll be able to nope that off. But I'll boot it up. I'll do my part and murder some poor innocent dinosaurs and, contribute to the Second Extinction. And then that may have to do me.
Yeah, that's fair. We'll have to see. It's one of those games where we'll have to check and see if there's actually campaigns, because you look at something like Left 4 Dead, Left 4 Dead's this kind of game and that does actually have a campaign structure to get through. So we might get lucky. We might get to just play a bit of it and nope it off, but maybe we'll have to stick with it. We'll wait and see.
Okay, let's move on to our leaving soon titles. So these are confirmed to be leaving on the 30th of April. So not long to play through them. You've got till Friday. And we have 4 titles leaving, and they are For the Kin, Fractured Minds, Levelhead, and Moving Out. Now, we covered Fractured Minds, Levelhead, and Moving Out on last week's show. I suppose the short answer is Fractured Minds is pretty good and very short, worth a play. The other 2, take them at your own discretion. I don't think either of them are fantastic.
Yeah, I'd say Fractured Minds, definitely give it a play. It takes 20 minutes. You'll get a whole bunch of game score if you like game score. So that's well worth checking out. Moving Out, maybe worth a go if you're, if you live with someone who can play some couch co-op with you and, it's worth at least playing it for half an hour to an hour, giving it a try. Levelhead, I don't think there's any real need to pick that one up.
Nah, no, there's no need to play Levelhead. I can assuredly say that. But will there be any reason to play our next game? The roguelike tabletop adventure and the curse of my nightmares that is For the Kin. So yes, this is a roguelike, so of course I hate it. You can instantly tell I hate it because I just cannot get on board with that genre. Unsurprisingly, For the Kin has not changed my mind on that. But I will pass over to Andrew, who is a slightly more forgiving roguelike player, as in he does not hate all of them instantly without any form of prejudice. So does For the Kin work as a roguelike game?
Right, yeah. So I mean, as you said, I am a bit more generous to roguelikes, but even I only like the very, very best ones. I'll play some Dead Cells, Enter the Gungeon, like top tier stuff. But anyway, yeah. So this I gave it a chance. As you said, this is a roguelike, but also kind of a tabletop game, which basically makes it an RPG. You move around on a grid, you take turns, you have turn-based combat, but also it's a roguelike, which is something we don't see a lot of really. Roguelikes are, at least in video games, roguelike stuff, it's typically fast-paced action, kind of, zip back to life when you die and try the run again and, get better at the mechanics to succeed. This kind of isn't that, because this is, a full-on RPG. You go on a quest around this grid-based map. You've got to do about 4 major story missions on the sort of standard level. There is other levels, but the main level, you do 4 big quests. There's a bunch of side quests to do along the way, and that's all perfectly serviceable turn-based RPG stuff where you're moving around on the grid. It's all entirely fine. But then the issue comes with, as you said, it's a roguelike. So nobody is playing an RPG game. You can even take the best RPGs. I'm a big fan of the like Bandai Namco's Tales series, like Tales of Symphonia, stuff like that. Obviously, Final Fantasy, huge, great RPGs. Even then, I don't want to play the first 2 hours of it over and over. Like nobody wants to play the start of an RPG repeatedly. You want to play the start, get powerful, and then go and do the fun content. And the big issue here is because this is a roguelike, you do end up having to play the start of over and over, and that's just, it just doesn't work. You know, I admire the idea, and I can see they're going for that tabletop gaming like branch. You know, it's even in the subtitle, it says it's a tabletop adventure, so they're going for that kind of, I don't know, almost Dungeons and Dragons style feel to it. But it just, I don't know, I couldn't get over the fact with this game that when I died, you know, I haven't lost a 20-minute run, I've lost 4.5 hours of my life. And that's just, it's an absolute killer, man.
Yeah, that is the big problem here. For the Kin is too long to be a roguelike. As Andrew mentioned, the best roguelikes tend to be pretty snappy experiences. Usually experiences you can also cut down as well. You'll find shortcuts through the world to get to the further on reaches of the game map faster. And yet, For the Kin doesn't really have any of that. You have to complete the same quests, doing the same thing over and over and over again as you gradually learn the systems, even though the systems aren't radically complicated. By the time you're halfway through your first run, you'll have probably picked up most of it. And so you're just stuck doing the same thing again. You're back to level 1 and you're struggling with level 1 enemies again. And it's just absolutely painful, and it's mind-numbingly tedious because the game world, although it is somewhat procedurally generated, doesn't change a lot. It looks almost exactly the same. So it is almost like you are just playing the game again. You're just starting it again. And I see the tabletop logic in that. If you start a game of Dungeons and Dragons, the game world is the same. The board is the board, whatever. I don't play a lot of these games. You can probably tell by how breezily I'm running over that. But that to me is how those things work. You start, play, you have a unique experience each time. But the problem for the Kin is the unique experience isn't really there because you're doing the same thing every time. It doesn't matter what choice you make or order you do anything in. The same things are going to happen. The same places are going to need to be ransacked for you to get towards the main goal. And once you've done that 2 or 3 times, you're just playing the start of an RPG over and over and over again. And that's just dull. That's just really boring. And it doesn't matter how much new loot you can find potentially or new weird pop-up events which can happen. It's all much of the muchness, and that just kills this game dead for me. In many ways, it can't work with a save system because then it's not a tabletop game. But by being a roguelike, it's too miserable. So there's just, the game has found itself between a rock and a hard place where only misery could exist.
Yeah, no, that's kind of it. I mean, it's just, there's no redeeming it. That's the problem. You can't go in either direction because you have a robust save system and you'd kind of just breeze through this game in 6 or 7 hours and it'd be a bit of a nothing game. But yeah, you take that system away and I'm not, I had to start it again. But if I'm a standard player that isn't beating this, then I would have never picked this up after my first run failed. It's just, there's no reason to. As you said, it's all the same. A town you need to visit might now be in the top right corner of the map instead of the bottom left. You know, the area that's like an ocean might be at the left side instead of the right side, but it's all still the same. Nothing really changes. You've got to do the same quests, go to the same towns. You know, every time the quest has this one really tedious objective where you have to find a hidden cellar on the map, and it only shows up if you walk right next to it. So you waste turn after turn just walking around that area until it appears. That's nice for ruining a run. One of my runs, they put that on a tiny island in the middle of the ocean. That was nice. I basically just wasted about 40 minutes of my life sailing around and eventually found it. But that was a bit of a killer, especially because this game does punish you for wasting time. It uses this logic of like a chaos system, and as more time passes, the chaos level goes up, and that basically makes more terrible things happen in the game world that will stop you winning. So yeah, very frustrating when you get held up by weird kind of reasonably poor quality quest design. And I mean, that's just the main issue here, to be honest. You know, you're playing the same quest, same story again. It's not hugely engaging the first time. The combat is fine, but unspectacular. My main issue of it is probably just that I don't think anything you find is exciting. Like, you know, you might find a new piece of armor that has like, it gives you 5 armor instead of 4, and that's about as exciting as it gets. You know, you'll find a sword that means you now do 2 more damage than before. It's just, you know, nothing. You never find that thing. You know, in like RPGs, or let's say even like looter shooters, one of the best things to do in those games is when you find something that's just so fantastically powerful for the part of the game you're currently at, and you just get, you know, you get this block of time, whether it's 20 minutes or whether it's 2 hours, where you can abuse that power spike you've just found to like breeze through parts of the game, and that's always really satisfying. And this game just doesn't have that. You basically, depending on the items you find, you range from feeling like you suck way too much to you suck just a bit too much. Like that's about the entire power level scale I found in this game. I never felt powerful. I never felt comfortable. And, that kind of grinds on you over the course of like 10 or 15 hours of trying to beat this thing.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's a big problem. I speak a lot about how just random increases in numbers isn't always satisfying, but that is a lot of what gaming is. But those random increases in numbers, as mentioned, need to come with a tangible feel of difference. If you're going to get a sword which is 2 more powerful, I need to feel like I'm more powerful. In For the King, I never really did. I just felt like I was chugging along at the same kind of rate. Usually enemies would be more bigger health bars, more leveled up anyway, so it didn't particularly matter what sword I had. I was always underpowered no matter what I was doing. And the game does force grinding to an extent. You do need to grind up levels to be able to survive and, compete in this game world. But by nature of its chaos system, you also can't grind for too long because then the game will screw you over. And there's so many random events in this title where you can't just grind in a field for too long because something bad will happen, which will just wreck you eventually. You have to kind of keep moving towards objectives and hoping you're just picking up enough levels and experience along the way. And that's not hugely satisfying. The RNG in this game, the random number generation, it's very frustrating because you move each of your 3 characters. You start with 3 different heroes of 3 different classes, all fairly interchangeable. They have their little wrinkles of what difference they have, and you move them one at a time, and yet if one of them is caught on their own, they are screwed. You cannot win a fight with just one person in this game against 2 or 3 enemies. You will lose. It's just not possible. And so you can move 2 or 3 people forward, and then the next one gets a bad dice roll, they lag behind, they get stuck in a fight, and before you know it, they're absolutely in the crap, and you've not really done anything. You've just moved. Like, you've not even started an objective. You've just moved. And it's all gone wrong. Everything you'd built towards, everything you'd planned for 4 hours can just start to fall apart on bad dice rolls. And that's the genre. That's tabletop. That's what a lot of these sort of games are. But when you mix it in with the inherent cruelty of a roguelike, mixed in with the inherent unfairness of random number generation, you start to get a real groundswell of just anger and bitterness when something completely screws you over in this title. I got to the final boss and none of my characters could hit him. I just got constant bad dice rolls. They just miss every single time. And he eventually wiped me out and was like, well, in another world, I hit him every single time and I've won that. And I don't need to pay 5.5 hours of it again to get back to that point. It's just ridiculous, really. I just can't get on board with that level of just cruelty in video game design. It just doesn't work for me. I don't have enough hours in my life to dedicate to For the King to get back to the same point on the hope of the better dice roll.
Yeah, no, that's entirely it. I mean, you look at stuff like the XCOM games, or I think Gears Tactics has this mode as well. Games like that have a hardcore like Iron Man kind of mode that you can use if you want, where things will happen. Like if people die, they remain dead. But I think some of them even have stuff where if you do actually lose a fight, it'll wipe your save out because you've died, you've lost. But that's a setting to put on for the sadistic players of the game. It's not the entire basis of the game. And then for the King, it is. That's the whole game. The whole game is can you manage to scrape through this 7-hour campaign before some bullshit happens and you die, and then you just have to do it again. And I can't get on board with that at all. I've also heard as well with this game, like you said, if you leave a character on their own, they're screwed. Even 2 people sometimes can be screwed in a battle. You kind of need all 3 people at all times. And that's completely at odds with me, odds to me, with the fact that I've heard online that apparently this is a good co-op game. And when you're playing co-op, you all play a character each and you take your turns and you make your moves. I got to be honest, man, I just can't fathom it. I can't fathom how this could be a good co-op game because I need everyone to just walk the same way. Like yes. there's no opportunity in this game where I would say you go off to the left and do that side quest. I'm going to go to the right and kill this like mini boss. If that was the way this game worked, I could understand playing it in co-op might actually be quite fun, but that's not this game. This game is stay together in like a tiny pack as if you like the cast in a horror movie. Don't let anyone go away from the group because they'll get stabbed. Just all stay together and just hopefully survive the night. That's all that I could see you doing in the co-op of this game. So I can't even understand how that would be good. It's a strange one.
It's just the systems, unfortunately, just don't work together for me. You never seem to have enough gold to buy the best weapons. So you're always against the black ball, trying to, move forward and progress in the game. The chaos system works against grinding to overlevel yourself. If you don't tackle all the little mini sub-bosses, the game world will just become a rift with just awful things which will just screw you over, so you have to go kill them. But they don't kill the chaos levels, so that'll go back up. No matter what you do, there's always something bad which is going to happen. Yeah. And it's kind of unavoidable. It just depends how long you can stave it off. Or if it happens at a time when you can deal with it to then recover to a different point. And that ultimately in a game like this is all just down to luck. I mean, anybody could play this game and beat it. You'll do it eventually. It's just sod's law.
Yeah.
But it's just how many times you can be bothered to do it until you physically can't take it anymore. And for me, I was so bored with this game after a few runs through. I just absolutely fed up with it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, that's the thing, right? If you could condense this entire game into something that could play in your typical roguelike length of time, like a 20-minute run or a 30-minute run, it would all be fine. You don't mind losing a dice roll or making a decision that doesn't work out because, again, you snap right back into the action. And it's got some other cool ideas in here. When you're playing through the game, you get these kind of I think they call them lore books or something. And then on the main menu, there's a store where you can trade those books for new events that open up in the world. So as you do more attempted runs, you can skew the odds in your favor by buying stuff from this store, which makes events happen in the world. Like, for example, some of the early ones are you can buy a new event that makes a traveling healer show up on Spaces sometime. And when you go there, they'll fully heal you. Or you can buy a new shop that opens up at night that has special items to help. Or you can get new armor and weapons that will now start appearing in the game. So I like that. That's clever. That's cool. I like the idea that I can, if I play a bit more and a bit more, I can kind of push the odds in my favor. But again, I'd like that in a game that took about 20 minutes, half an hour to do a run. I can't play enough runs of For the King for that system to really shine because it's just too insufferable to lose and just start again and do the same quests again. So, that's a cool idea. There's some other stuff in here that's decent enough. I quite like some of the enemy designs. Some of them are pretty fun. There's some skeleton bards and stuff that are quite cool. They dance around playing little guitars and things like that. That's nice. So it's not, there's some stuff in here that could work in a different game maybe, but this just doesn't come together.
Yeah, as you said, there are good stuff. The lore story is a clever idea, fairly well executed. Still relies on an element of luck, but that's the game mechanic, man. I've just got to accept that. Yeah. As you say, some of the character designs are pretty cool. The actual look of the game is quite nice. It's quite cute. It looks pretty clean and enjoyable. I actually think the RPG elements, just the standard turn-based battles, are fairly satisfying. Yes, the fact that your damage is entirely dependent on dice rolls annoys the heck out of me, but it all works fine enough. And if you do get some good upgrades, you can have some fun and enjoyable moves to work with. There's stuff to like here. It's just a roguelike, and therefore anything it does, which is good, is negated by the inherent bullshit of its genre. So for me, it round up as a 5. I think it's fine. I think it's probably one of the better roguelikes I've played. And I mean, that's not saying much, to be honest with you. It's like grading your favorite punch in the face. But this was a slight bruise to the upper left cheek, whereas certain other titles like Goner 2 is just a full-blown knuckle duster to the eye. So this is better than that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I gave this a 5 out of 10 as well. I think, if you're a fan of all those elements, right? We spoke about how that subtitle gives you nightmares. If you're a fan of tabletop roguelike adventure, if that sounds like something nice to you, you might quite like this game. And you might kind of enjoy doing these long runs and going at it again with some new things you've unlocked in that lore store. You might get into that. But what I would say is that this is straight up absolutely not a title to try and rush through while it's in leaving soon, especially not now because the days are running out. I wouldn't have even said it was worth playing with a 2-week deadline. I think this is the kind of game where if all those things appeal to you and you'd be a fan of it, it's something that I'd almost say you buy and you play a run, that run fails, and then you give it another shot in like a month's time. I don't think you can just back to back hit this game. It's just too frustrating starting it over and over again. So yeah, I think that's the best I could say for it, really.
Okay, so let's move on to our next feature, and it's the return of what are we playing this week. Such is the quiet state of Game Pass at the moment. We've delved into our backlogs to see what we can talk about, and we're going to kick it off with a little bit of PopCap goodness in the fantastic tower defense title, Plants vs. Zombies. None of the multiplayer-focused FPS ones, which can go die in a ditch for me. We're talking OG, classic Plants vs. Zombies. And what I would say is PopCap's best game. Yes, I would say this is better than Peggle.
That's a bold statement. That's a real bold statement. But yeah, I mean, PopCap really, they in many ways they almost started with Plants vs. Zombies. We spoke about some of their games before this, things like Zuma, which there's good ideas, but it doesn't quite come together. Plants vs. Zombies was the game where they really started to, be revered as the kind of just the absolute kings of kind of casual, relaxed, chilled out games. And yeah, Plants vs. Zombies is real good. I don't have it quite up at the Peggle level. I think that I don't know. I think Peggle's just a much more enjoyable kind of fast-paced game experience. You can kind of pop a level on for a couple of minutes and then choose to play another one or choose to move on. Whereas Plants vs. Zombies, because of its tower defense nature, I don't know. I do feel a slight drag sometimes when I'm playing the game. But there's no denying that it's a fantastic game. And I mean, look, I'm coming at it about 14 years late to when it actually released. So, I'm sure at the time when, there wasn't 10,000 tower defense games out there as well, it was a real kind of shining light in that genre.
I suppose I'm kind of the weird example here. I also hadn't played this game until I picked it up this past month or so. But I'd also never really played any tower defense games. It was a genre that I had literally no interest in. For me, I didn't really want to play them. So I kind of picked this up on a bit of a whim. I always liked the art style. I always thought it looked really cute and quite colourful. But ultimately, I was expecting a very short but perfectly serviceable playthrough. So I was quite surprised when this gripped me just utterly and completely. Maybe I do secretly like tower defense games and I just never knew. Maybe that is the actual answer here. But there's so much joy in Plants vs. Zombies. So it's wonderfully weird little ploddy kind of music which plays in the background, which is always very satisfying, to the gorgeous designs of these plants, which look absolutely brilliant. So much imagination. Just tons of stuff, from weird little anthills, which are bombs, to flowers which can spit flames, to ice, to just general peas, some of them which have 3 heads and fire 3 peas at once, and they're just the absolute best. To the zombie designs. The zombie designs are just incredible in this game. You've got football running zombies who are fantastic. You've got zombies with a jack-in-the-box, which will blow up if you let them get too close. The zombies on pogo sticks. Zombies who go in the water and have a big snorkel. On a dolphin. I mean, it's just absolutely fantastic enemy design. And every time you encounter a new one, it's a wonderful mix of I can't wait to see a new zombie and also a dreaded fear of, oh God, how do I deal with this one? And the way they combine them together is just so satisfying.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, I think, because as you start off this game, as you said, you have these plants. The plants are fantastic, but the game eases you in. You got your pea shooter guy who shoots like peas at the zombies. You got a sunflower which generates kind of money basically that you can spend on more plants. In this game, of course, it's sunlight because that makes sense. And you kind of start with these pretty basic plants and also basic zombies coming up at you. But then they just they add stuff in just bit by bit. Like suddenly there's a zombie in a full football outfit, and you're thinking, what does this mean? What's he gonna do? And obviously it turns out that in his case you have to kind of shoot his helmet off, and then you can do more damage to him. And then you get comfortable again, but now there's a zombie that's a pole vaulter, and he'll use his pole vault to get over your first plant and like attack the kind of back line of plants. And I mean, the first time that happened, it just ruined my life, because you kind of feel like what the game is at this point. So you set up a really strong line of plants, like, this guy's screwed, and then he just pole vaults over them, starts eating your suns. You're like, no, get off the sunflowers. It just does that over and over again. It just constantly introduces like great creative like ideas for these zombies. And I think a lot of that, I don't want to say it was lost on me, but like I very briefly played this when it came out. I played like a couple of levels and then never played it again. But then since then, I've actually played quite a lot of the Garden Warfare series, the kind of third-person shooter multiplayer spin-offs of this series. And that uses all of these fantastic zombie and plant designs as the characters for its shooting game. So I feel like I've almost been spoiled by seeing them in that first before this game. You know, like maybe they're just not landing the same for me because I've been seeing them in other games for so long now. But there's no getting around how creative and fantastic the designs are. It really is like top-notch stuff.
It's not just the designs, so the sound design in this game is fantastic. As you move further on, I mean, the initial levels, you're bathed in sunlight and you can see everything that's coming. But later on, you'll get like areas of darkness where you know what it is, but you can tell by the sound of the zombie what is coming to you, so you know how to prepare for it. You can hear a rustle in the bushes. You can see it as well, so you know where to place your first line as you're building up your initial defenses. I love the fact that you know they're coming because they'll literally say, "We're coming." I absolutely adore that. It's very cute. The minute you hear it, it's like, oh God, the zombies are here. And it's time to step into action. It's just really good from the sound of them eating a plant. And there's that chompy sound they make as they quickly eat through it all. If you put an acorn down, which they'll just stop instantly to try and eat for like 7 or 8 turns or however long it takes them, and they'll just munch on it, and you can just hear it constantly in the background. And it's just deeply satisfying. There's so many audio kind of pleasures added to the visual pleasures of the art style and the character design. It's an absolute masterclass in that, along with the music in the background. There's so much joy happening to all of your senses that even if the game didn't play well, I'd be enjoying it just because it's got so much character instantly built into its world. The fact that it is a very well constructed tower defense game on top of that just really brings it up to another level to me. It's constantly playing with its idea. You know, you have a pool which just appears in the backyard. I mean, you got to sort out how you deal with the pool zombies, and just everything can mess you up, and you don't really know how. And you build up strategies, and you'll need to rethink the strategy for different levels. I mean, they don't even introduce trebuchets until like the 5th level, the 5th set of levels, and that's just fantastic. I absolutely love that they got this entire new idea right at the depth of the game. It's so clever, it's so well done, and it's just a real good game. I love this a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think they do a good job as well of like sometimes they almost know the right time to mix in levels that are a bit different. So, you know, you'll do a few levels of straight up tower defense. And as I said, you know, I have some criticisms, which is that, you know, every now and then I'll feel a little bit of a drag. I feel like, you know, I'll do a few levels in a row and I'll think I'm about done for now. You know, I'll pick this up later. But then they'll just throw a level at you that is totally different. Like there'll be a level that's basically just bowling. You know, you'll just the zombies are walking up and you just gotta just throw some sort of giant acorn walnut looking thing at them, and then it just bowls them down. Or there'll be levels that are like whack-a-mole and you just gotta hit them with a hammer. You know, they kind of know when to put those in and when to mix it up from traditional tower defense, which really helps a lot as well.
Yeah, it really varies up the pace to those little bonus levels you can do, and they are a lot of fun. And it's cute. It tells its cute little story in a funny way as well. You're always getting letters from the zombies, and they're trying to pretend they're not the zombies. It's like, "Hello, I am your neighbor P," and it's all clearly spelled incorrectly, and there's blood everywhere. And he's like, "Well, this is obviously a zombie," and it's just chock full of charming little weird little things like that. It's very, very good. It's a lot of fun to do, and there's so much different variety of defenses and different things you can use to customize how you play it, as well as a lot of different game modes. It's not just a campaign here. There's tons of different modes to enjoy this kind of different tweaks on the formula every single time. It's just packed full of personality. It's packed full of great puzzles. I blitzed through it in the best part of 2 or 3 days, and there's about 6 to 7 hours worth of Plants vs. Zombies here. It's not that short of a game. It's surprisingly long. And I was never bored. I could have just kept playing this. I was just absolutely invested in it. And the fact that they moved away from the tower defense part of this game actually makes me sad. I want to see more of this. I mean, I know the third-person shooters have their place, and they're very good by all accounts. But I want to see more original Plants vs. Zombies because it's such a fantastic idea. It's so well done. I just feel like I need more of it in my life, and I'm being deprived of it by this sodding online shooter.
Yeah, and then we do have enough online shooters, so you know they definitely could go back to tower defense. It'd actually be quite cool to see them, you know, because now they've got all of these kind of great looking, very well animated assets, like 3D assets of all the different plants and zombies. So it would be nice to see them go full circle and actually bring those into a completely modern, up to date Plants vs Zombies sequel that goes back to the roots. I think that'd be really cool. But yeah, look, really good game. I don't quite have the same excitement towards it that you have. Like I couldn't play this in 2 or 3 days. I'm much more of a, if I was recommended it to someone, I'd say kind of do it in like 20-minute bursts, do a few levels, turn it off for the day, pop it back on a couple of days later. Like I need to pace it out a bit more than you. But then again, you've apparently never played tower defense, so it's all new to you. It's all exciting and new. But still, that doesn't mean it's not a fantastic game and that it's not a fantastic, it just PopCap game as well. If you like any of their other stuff and the kind of vibe they go for, this is something definitely to give a shot. Whether you play it on an Xbox or whether you grab it on, I'm pretty sure this is available on mobile, and that's a pretty good fit for it. Touchscreen controls would be ideal for this kind of game. So yeah, wherever you choose to play it, it's definitely one to play. I've given this a 7 out of 10. I think this is good stuff.
I've given this an 8. I very nearly gave it a 9. I like it that much. I think it's about as good a casual game as I've ever played. I think it's exquisite game design. And I'll pay it the highest compliment I can play any game, which is I almost could see Nintendo making something like this. It has so much of that charm. It has so much of that easy personality. It's so fully formed on arrival that it does feel that way. No other PopCap game, maybe Peggle does a little bit, but I'm more enamored by the mechanics of Peggle and the music which plays at the end of it than anything else in Peggle. That to me makes Peggle. It's a fun game and the music's fantastic. Everything about Plants vs. Zombies, from character design to menu design to everything that surrounds it, has care and attention paid to it in a way that most casual games just wouldn't. Anybody could play this. And, it is playable by anybody. And yet it's absolute sumptuous game design at its very core level. And I can't recommend it highly enough. I think it's a fantastic game and very well worth playing if you somehow, like me, haven't played a tower defense game or something like it already.
Yeah, and like I said, even if you've been playing tower defense a lot, this is still one of the top tower defense games to check out even today. So well worth, turning back the clock a bit, going back to I think it's like 2006 this came out, 2007. Still well worth picking up. There's not been many that have came out and done a better job.
Well, let's move on to our next title, which doesn't quite have the same cultural significance as Plants vs. Zombies. It's a little known game called Final Fantasy VII. I don't know if you've heard of it. I think it came out on the PlayStation or something like that, and it was kind of a big deal. Of course, we're joking. It's Final Fantasy VII. It's one of the most famous franchises in video game history. Where do you even start talking about a game like this?
Yeah, Final Fantasy VII. I mean, first of all, genuinely crazy that, because we play everything, right? We've had we jump through PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo. We have this podcast where we have to beat 500 games because we're stupid people. It's absolutely insane that the original Final Fantasy VII was a blind spot for both of us until recently. I don't know how this slipped under the radar for this long, but here we are. You beat it just a few months ago, I think, and then I finally beat it just this weekend. So we're at a point where we can actually speak about it, and that's pretty great. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's tricky when you review a game like this, particularly when we came to it so late, because we know the cultural significance. We know how it will always place on any list of the best 50 games of all time. You will expect to see Final Fantasy VII in it or around the top 10. We know how popular the characters are. Cloud, Strife, Sephiroth, Aerith. We all know their stories, kind of at least. We certainly know the giant spoiler. Nobody truly does not know the giant spoiler. So it's weird to come back to a game with so much significance and you're first greeted by these weird character models with giant ham hock hands. And you just think to yourself, this is the greatest game of all time. And Final Fantasy VII kind of has to win you over now, because if you haven't played it, you don't have that nostalgia. You'll notice some of the more clunky elements of it more so than you ever would have done at the time, because you'd have been so blown away by that hawk. Nowadays, you're appalled by it. So it has a lot more work to do for people like us who've never played it. So when I came out of it going, actually, I think this is every bit as good as people say it is, that's kind of impressive, and I very much do.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is with Final Fantasy VII is, as you said, it's always had this huge reputation, and it is difficult to go back to games you didn't play. But I think because we're both quite retro-minded gamers anyway, I'm always more than happy to whip out like an N64 or play my Super Nintendo Classic or something like that. I feel like we're slightly more okay with it than other people because, you could argue realistically, I think the N64 and the PS1, the kind of birth of 3D gaming on console, they are the hardest machines to go back to for anyone who is younger than those consoles. Like the graphics are just these insane big 3D blocks of nothing, and like the backgrounds are muddy, and it's all just really difficult to look at, frankly, whereas we maybe don't get that. So I didn't struggle too much with it, but I would say, of course, as you said, the big ham hock hands, like the characters look insane in this game. They look ridiculous, and they're kind of on a backdrop of these slightly muddy but kind of beautiful static backgrounds that just look completely nothing like the characters. The characters just don't look like the same artist or designer was involved in them, which is weird. You go into a battle scene and then you see completely different character models of your characters where they look a bit more standard in terms of proportions. They're taller, they're kind of thinner, they don't have massive ham hocks, so that's kind of strange. But getting past the visuals and the difficulty of actually picking that up and getting into the game itself, I mean, I can see a lot of the reasons why this was so revered over the time. I think even going back today, you're still getting a fantastic RPG story, one of the best RPG stories I've played. I would say it does take a while to get going. Anyone who's been listening to the show for a while will know that we very briefly touched on Final Fantasy VII just at the top of a show a couple of months ago, and I think you asked me a question about like what my favorite character was or something, Josh, and I'd played about 10 hours of this game at the time, and I was kind of just like, I don't know, like I'm not bothered. I'm not enamored by anyone really yet. And then I played the other 20 hours of the kind of main story of this game, and that decision just got thrown right in the bin. That's a ridiculous idea that I wouldn't care about these characters. This game takes you on a journey that I haven't seen with many JRPGs. These characters, it feels like people would say it about a lot of games, but I feel like in this game, these characters genuinely do grow and change through the game. And also, above all else, one of the biggest compliments I can give Final Fantasy VII from a kind of narrative standpoint is that it's not afraid to just do bold, crazy shit with your party, frankly. Like most JRPGs, you get your team of super friends and you go and save the world. And like the game will just leave those characters alone. They'll be like, right, that's your party. You're leveling them up. You're kind of, maybe you've made this one more powerful than the others. So, we're too scared to take that away from you. We're going to leave them. They're all safe. They're all going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Whereas Final Fantasy VII is just like, you know what? Nah, screw that. Like this game will do whatever the hell it wants with your party. It will send some of them away for extended periods of times. Some of them might have like motivations that aren't in the best interests of your team, and those will just come out later on. They just don't care. They will do whatever they feel is the right move narratively, and you as a player just have to deal with it. If you've just lost your strongest team member, then sucks to be you. You gotta just crack on and keep working through the game. And I absolutely love that.
Yeah, the narrative structure of Final Fantasy VII is absolutely fantastic. It's a brilliant story, very well told. I mean, as most of our listeners may know, I did play the remake before I actually played Final Fantasy VII. And of course, I mentioned at the top, we do know the big spoiler, which I won't say just in case you somehow don't know it. But, if you do know it, you know it. But so we're coming into playing the actual original game. I kind of felt like nothing would surprise me too much. And the biggest compliment I could play Final Fantasy VII is that the big spoiler is not the biggest spoiler in Final Fantasy VII. There's so many weird, crazy twists in this tale, which I did not see coming at all.
Yep.
Which just left me mouth agape, just gawping at my PlayStation Vita, this old PS1 game I was playing on it, just shocked to the very bottom of my soul by what was happening. And it's so well written. And as you said, they take so many risks in making you play as different characters, to the point where you will gain more affection for characters you perhaps did not particularly care for when you were first introduced to them. Everyone's going to have their first choice team. That's always going to be the case in RPGs, and you expect it to be. But by forcing you to play as cider kind of characters in this game, you gain more of an affinity for the whole lot of them. So when they do, bandy together at the end, and you just want to throw your fist in the air and be like, yes, damn it, we're going to do this. And it's very, very satisfying. And very few games give you that sort of character arc. You don't usually feel so in tune with all of a JRPG squad. You usually only have 2 or 3 of them you love. I love all the characters in Final Fantasy VII. Like you just do, and some of them you may not even meet. Characters like Yuffie and Vincent Valentine are side unlockable characters who you don't actually have to bring with you, but yet they are fairly fully formed. And they do add new dialogue and new options where you visit certain new towns. It's just a fantastic little weaving structure of characters and plot. It's very impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's it as well. Like you said there, a couple of the characters who you can have in your party here are just optional. You have to either know where to find them or you stumble upon them. And, keep in mind, this is a game from 1997. This is it's getting real old now. And yet every character has dialogue for every situation. Like, I think that's insanely impressive from a game from this era. Like, if I choose to bring Vincent and Yuffie with me, who are two completely optional characters, if they're in my party, we go and do certain quest content or certain other things. They have full dialogue for what is unfolding at that time. And it would have been so easy for the developers of this game to just kind of funnel all the dialogue through like your lead character or whoever they think they can stick you with for the full game to kind of get around that problem. And they just don't, like I'm playing this whole game with my particular party or like switching through different parties. And if I played it again and switched those teams around, I would find out different stuff or like hear different characters' thoughts on what's going on, which you just didn't used to get that at the time. You rarely get it now. Like it's genuinely really impressive stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And the remake was mainly focused on the area of Midgar, which of course famously is only 3 to 4 hours of this game, which got blew up to a huge proportion of the remake, but it's a tiny part of this. And I actually was quite impressed by how big and varied and detailed the world map is in Final Fantasy VII. It's a joy to traverse. There's so many weird little towns and places to discover and little side areas you'd never need actually visit at any point, which you very much should do. Side quests in this game, which I just didn't expect to have and which have huge arcs to them and are deeply satisfying to do. Side bosses you can face who are fantastic fights and very enjoyable to do. It's a densely packed world, which never feels like I'm just wasting my time. I always feel like I'm still in service of the main story. I still feel like I'm doing what I need to do to, save the world, as it were. And yet it gives you so much extra content. And that's a very tricky balance to play. It's like I always mention how Yakuza plays some mad trick where its side content somehow sits alongside its ridiculous soap opera main story. And Final Fantasy VII does a similar thing. There's a lot of levity in this game. There's a lot of humor. There's a lot of joy in it, despite the fact the entire gosh darn world is going to end. That's kind of cool that I could have a good time and feel like I'm just hanging with my buddies, even though there's, something disastrous is about to happen.
Well, yeah, exactly. You said there's so much to do, so much, there's so much extra stuff going on in this world. And obviously, we'll get to the combat soon. The combat is obviously a big part of this game, but even getting away from that, this game is full of just crazy, like just extra things that other JRPGs would have no interest in even trying to fit into the game. Like at points in this game, you'll ride like a motorbike through a segment. You'll go racing on chocobos, the kind of cutesy Final Fantasy birds. You'll be snowboarding down some hills. Like you can bet on those chocobo races. There's an entire giant casino place with a bunch of different stuff going on. Like it's crazy. Like this, again, for context, and I know I keep ragging on it, but this is 1997. This is the first 3D Final Fantasy game. They had to work out how to even make a 3D game. And not only did they make a 3D game, they went, screw it, let's put snowboarding and racing and bikes in it. Like, what were they thinking, and how did they manage to achieve it? I don't understand.
Yeah, it's quite incredible. And you mentioned the battle system there. Let's talk about the battle system. Yeah. It's a fantastic system, to be honest with you. It's a very satisfying turn-based system. It's all built around the ATB Gorge, the active time battles where the bar will fill up and then drop down again, and you will take a turn according to how quickly it fills. You can use spells to speed it up. You can use spells to slow the enemies down. It all works very intuitively. There's a lot of different spells and different magic you can use depending on who you're facing. They all have different weaknesses. It's deep. It's very, very filled with different wrinkles and ideas and different forms. And it's fantastic to play. And I was amazed because I played this on a PS1 emulator, so I didn't have any 2x battle speeds. I played everything as God intended at the very slow speed which these battles can take. And I was never bored. I always quite enjoyed seeing Cloud's big boy sword just slash into some freak and, do a huge amount of damage, because that's cool, man. And it never stops being cool for the 25 to 30 hours the game runs. And that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. And look, I mean, this game does certain things with the way that you kind of get magic abilities and magic attacks that some people might not enjoy, because this game completely forgoes the typical job system. If you're someone who likes playing an RPG where you can be like, right, this character's a magician, this one's a warrior, like you kind of don't get that here, but it's gone in place of just a ton of flexibility, frankly. Like, so this game basically works in a way where you basically just fit items onto you might be wearing like a piece of armor or something, and that has slots in it, and then you put the magic you want to use in those slots. So any character can do any magic provided you give them it at the time, and that opens up the door to just a ton of options and a ton of flexibility. And you get like modifiers, so maybe you get something that makes a spell that you put next to it hit everyone instead of just a single target, or if you put a lightning spell next to something, that you can put it next to a bonus thing that will make your armor now be resistant to lightning, as well as being able to do the lightning magic attack. Like, it's a system with crazy, crazy possibilities and depth to it. And as you play more of the game, I think that really does start to shine. Because early on, I was hoping, like, I don't know, I find it very comfortable when a game just lets me just, lock my characters down particular routes. It's like a comfort blanket, It's like, all right, you're the magic person, you do the magic. It just makes it all feel a bit easier to understand. But yeah, as you play more of this, that battle system really does start to unfold and shine. And I would say, look, the HD kind of they're barely HD, let's be honest, but these remasters of the games, when you play them on consoles like the Xbox or like a PS4 or something, they do have a bunch of options, like speeding up the battles, and even just speeding up the whole game. You click the stick in and it goes to ×3 speed. And honestly, it almost becomes a bit of a detriment in a way. Like, a part of me wished it wasn't there, because when it's there, you're going to use it. And you kind of can't help yourself. It's like, yeah, if you're in a battle and you can click something that just makes it go faster, and then you can unclick it whenever you need to do something, it's very hard to not do that. But that also completely kind of kills the feel of the game a lot as well. So I don't know, it's a tricky one. It feels stupid to say play this on a console that doesn't have those options if you can, because that just seems a bit counterintuitive. But I don't know, if you play it on an Xbox, you're going to use it, and I think it does kill the flow of the game a bit, because you just kind of get a bit spoiled.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can speed up battles, you will lose some of the, careful little design choices that are in there, and that is a real shame. The game can be sped up anyway just by casting haste all the time, which, to be honest, if you cast haste and regeneration, you'll basically win the game. That's all you need to do. Cast haste all, cast regen all, and you'll basically win Final Fantasy VII. But that's not a bad thing. That's just good tactics. That's what you do. I mean, along the way, you'll face some wonderful boss fights in this game, some fantastic boss designs, which are really satisfying to play through and battle through. There's nothing too challenging. I don't think I died more than a couple of times in Final Fantasy VII, and the only times I did was when I probably pushed myself a little too far, when I should have taken a break to heal up the team. But that's not a bad thing either. I don't feel like this game needs to be ragingly hard. I think it's pitched pretty well. You've got enough of the scope to, keep leveling up and keep getting better. You don't need to grind in Final Fantasy VII if you're not a fan of grinding in RPGs. No grind required here. If you just play the game normally, you should still be able to get through it. But if you did want to go out and beat up some freaks and do some side stuff, all the better for it. You'll enjoy it more the further down you go. You'll have a slightly easier time when you get to the big Sephiroth battle, where that incredible piece of One-Winged Angel music kicks in and you just shit your pants, because it's the only response at that time. Just the music in general in this game. And people always talk about One-Winged Angel, and it is fantastic. But the score in general is just wonderful in Final Fantasy VII, from the main theme to all the characters' themes to the delicious music that plays in Cosmo Canyon, where I would literally just sit in Cosmo Canyon and listen to it for the best part of 10 minutes and still not be bored and still not feel like I've had enough of it. It's just glorious sound design. It really is. It's just top tier stuff. You could listen to that today, just the old PS1 soundtrack, and be absolutely amazed by it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And with the limitations they were under as well, like obviously the music has issues with like it had to be compressed to fit on CDs. They couldn't sort of just, you can't just go full out with orchestral music in the late 90s for your games. So they just embraced the restrictions they had and made a fantastic soundtrack. And it's I've said before on the show, I think that when a Super Smash Brothers character comes out, the thing I'm most excited for is that they tend to get original composers back to make new spins on their music from whatever the game is that the character is from. And in many ways, that's one of the main things I'm excited about with the remake set of games. I'm looking forward to getting to Cosmo Canyon in remake part 3 or whenever the hell you get there, because we just get to hear this fantastic score just brought to life in a new era as well. But even without that, I could listen to this soundtrack on repeat all day anyway. I don't necessarily need it to be updated, because it is something really special.
Yeah, Nobuo Uematsu, we all know he's a genius, and this is top tier composing work. It really, really is. I mean, I don't know where else you go with this game. There are flaws, I suppose. Some of the pacing can get a little strange at times. There are a lot of change-ups in different types of game they use. You do mention snowboarding. There is actually kind of a tower defense system. So I did play a tower defense game technically in this, So there are loads of different little weird wrinkles. I enjoy them all. I think they're all fantastic. Other people may think it's a little bit silly at times and it breaks up the flow of what you're doing. It never particularly bothered me. And I suppose maybe the story it's kind of the circles the wagons a little bit. There's a lot of times where you're just chasing Sephiroth and you keep finding the dude. And I kind of like the fact he's so dismissive that he never gets rid of you. He just walks away because he knows he's badass and he does not need to worry about you. But it is also comically hilarious that you keep finding this dude and he just keeps going, and walking straight off again. So I suppose that's a little odd.
Yeah, there's so much drama behind the meeting from your party side. We're gonna get him. We have to stop him all. And he's like, yeah, whatever. I'll see you later on. I'm probably gonna go there next. Do you want to go there? Maybe see you there. But yeah, that's a good point. I would say, look, like we said about those mini games, and you mentioned there the snowboarding and the kind of tower defense, almost real time strategy game that's hidden in there as well. Like those games. I mean, it's great that they were in there because at the time, like I said, first 3D game, somehow you're doing all this mad extra stuff. And, they don't outstay their welcome in this game, but you're not going to be absolutely enamored by them. This isn't the pinnacle of snowboarding gameplay or strategy gameplay. These are very much just little weird side pieces that are just about enjoyable enough that you can tolerate them for the length they run. At the time, it might have been a different story because just the idea of them being able to do this stuff would have been impressive, whereas that's come and gone now. So I think that, those can be a bit of a struggle. As you said, the story does have some pacing issues at times. It has that part that a lot of games have. Wind Waker is the standout example for me. But, it has that part where eventually you end up on some quest to go and get multiple shards or multiple pieces of something. And that maybe drags the pace a little bit, in the back end of the game. But I still was completely, driven to finishing this game. It got sidetracked for a while because we had to finish some beefy stuff like Witcher 3. But as soon as I had the chance to get back to it, I wanted to because I wanted to see this out. And, that's a testament to how good it is, because it's real easy to drop games when you're trying to beat 500. Let me tell you, that's it's very easy to just put something to one side and never get back to it. So that's really the only negatives I've got. I mean, you could say maybe the translation is a bit shaky too. There's certain bits that don't quite translate perfectly and they can be a little messy, but it's nothing that gets in the way too much. You fully understand what's going on. You fully get everything that's happening. So it's not a huge issue. But other than that, this is fantastic stuff.
Yeah, it's not a fantastic translation. It is a little iffy in parts, but all the characters do. You'll fall in love with everybody by the time you've finished. You're going to get taken along on a soaring story, just filled with fantastic twists and really heartfelt moments. It really kicks you in the gut occasionally, does Final Fantasy VII, in a way I didn't expect. And not just for the big spoiler, but other parts of the game as well. It's very touching. It's very well written. It's just a top-tier gaming experience. It still holds up. Even 24 years later, Final Fantasy VII still holds up as one of the better examples of the JRPG genre. It's very fun to play. It's got a fantastic combat system, so much right about it. So much to enjoy. The pre-rendered backgrounds are perhaps a little bit awkward at times when you're trying to find a ladder and you just can't find it because you think it's the background and it turns out it isn't. That'll happen frequently to you, but such is life. Such was the late 90s in these sort of games. I just think it's a fantastic title. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Can't wait to see where the remakes go next, adapting the rest of the story. I gave it a 9 out of 10. I think it's very, very good. Fantastic game.
Yeah, I gave this an 8 out of 10. I think it's great stuff. I think everybody should be trying this and giving it a go. And I think the big takeaway from this is, because you probably did the same, whether it was subconscious or not, Josh, but like, I think the fact that I knew the big spoiler made me not play this for a long time, because I just thought, well, I've kind of had it ruined for me anyway. Is it really worth me checking it out? And like we said at the top of this review, that big spoiler's barely even the biggest. There's multiple moments in this game that hit you just as hard as that would if you didn't know about it. It's full of them. The game's full of them. So I just want to say, if you know that spoiler, because you probably do, it's not the whole game, and it's well worth playing the game to see the rest of the story. Like, the game hasn't been spoiled for you. So please do give this one a try. All right, then. So time to close out the show, as always, with a bit of news. And we've got a few stories this week. Let's open this up with the only one that really has anything to do with Game Pass, which is that Xbox Cloud Gaming via Game Pass is finally coming to PC and iOS devices. So this is currently in a beta. I think you can apply to that beta still, but it shouldn't be long before it's available to everyone. And yeah, look, this means that you can finally play on Apple devices, iPhones, iPads. You can just, get a Bluetooth controller hooked up to that and play some Xbox, which is fantastic news. They've had to do it through a browser, which is awkward as hell, but they had no choice because Apple are just stingy bastards, basically. So, you have to actively go to the Xbox website in your phone's browser or your tablet's browser and then play the games through that. But by all accounts from people using the beta so far, it's working pretty seamlessly, just as if you're doing the kind of more native app-based streaming that you do on Android handhelds, Android phones. Obviously, massively dependent on internet signal and connectivity, but look, I mean, credit to them for getting this working, man. I find it insane that, they've been pushed as far as having to make a console streaming service that works through frigging the Safari browser. Like, that's absolutely ludicrous that they've even managed to get that to work. And the only thing it's missing apparently is just you can't do the touchscreen controls that you have through the Android app version. But I mean, look, there's only so many miracles you can expect here. Like, you're playing Gears 5 on an iPhone through a web browser. There's only so much we can do.
Yeah, I mean, I can't get certain unscrupulous websites to open in Safari, let alone an entire cloud gaming service. So yeah, kudos to the engineers at Xbox for managing to get that to work. That's very cool. Means nothing to me. I can't play any cloud gaming. I can barely open up those unscrupulous websites. So, I'm not going to be able to stream Banjo. So that's just life.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, I think, the kind of hidden gem with this one really is, like, people have been talking about the Apple side of this for ages, like iPhone users desperate to get in on the Game Pass stuff, but this PC streaming, man, that's not something to sleep on, because fair enough, mobiles, it's great that you can play some of these games on the move, but that's a pretty small screen. Whereas now that we're getting close to PC streaming being fully released to people, that potentially is turning anyone's crappy old PC into something that they can sit and play Gears 5 on, or play the Master Chief Collection on, that's kind of amazing. And obviously, again, it's all internet speed depending, and that's gonna, people's mileage is gonna vary with that. But that's just like, you're gonna have people out there who are on, machines with like 5 or 10-year-old graphics cards that can't even load up these games, and they're now going to be able to sit there with a controller and play them, and that's awesome.
Well, yeah, as these internet speeds start to improve across the world, and hopefully this country, and certainly my area, then that's fantastic. But the big takeaway here is that we could get to the point where you don't need consoles anymore at this point, because if you can have a gaming level PC just sat there waiting for you, just your normal laptop, then why do you need a console anymore? The only reason I don't only play PC games is because it's an endless expense to keep updating them to the highest specs. It's only the convenience of console gaming which keeps me as a console gamer. So, if we are getting to the point where cloud gaming becomes a future, are Microsoft single-handedly killing the next Xbox Is that essentially what they're doing here?
I mean, well, it remains to be seen, doesn't it? I mean, Phil Spencer's obviously, he's saying a lot that, he expects home consoles to be the standard way to play for a long time, and that this is just about giving people alternatives and more options. But, that's what anyone would say currently in this position. You don't want to scare off your audience by saying that we're just going to do Google Stadia because we've all seen how that's gone. So, it may be over time we will get to that point. But for now, we're in a pretty great era for it because, you've got, not only have you got a premium home console, you've got a cheaper option as well that plays all the upcoming games, and then you've got the streaming on top of that. So, it's a fantastic time to be involved in the Xbox ecosystem, really, and hopefully we do. Hopefully we can keep servicing both of those needs. I think it's going to be unrealistic to expect everybody to be able to stream games even in the next decade without any massive issues, So I hope to see both. I'd be happy to continue buying my consoles as well as doing my streaming, but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, so moving on. Next up, we have some news on E3, and Ubisoft are the first company to pick their slot. They've picked a time that they're going to do their, traditional press conference. I think they call theirs Ubisoft Forward. So Ubisoft Forward, that is going to be on Saturday, June 12th, and that is at 12 p.m. Pacific time, which is 8 p.m. for us over here in the UK. Now, Josh, famous Ubisoft lover, is there anything at all that could be at Ubisoft Forward 2021 that would excite you? Is there anything you want to hear from them here, or I don't know? Is there anything they can do for you?
I mean, basically no. There's nothing I massively want from them. I always wanted a new Prince of Persia game until I realized what they did. So, clearly I don't really even want that. I did pick up a Wii U this past week with a copy of Zombie U. So maybe Zombie U 2 for the Nintendo Wii U. That famous moneymaker of a release could be quite interesting. So Zombie U 2 for the Wii U, or you can basically go die in a ditch for me, Ubisoft. But frankly, you can do that anyway.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That was what I was expecting. I mean, I think there's a couple of good things that we could see from this. I'd like to see. Yeah, I got two. Got two whole ones.
More than one?
So first one is I would like to see a new Splinter Cell game. Splinter Cell has been left dormant for about 8 years now.
No chance.
It's about time, and I won't see it because they just keep putting, like, it's like they're trolling the Splinter Cell fan base, but they put Sam Fisher in Ghost Recon Wildlands, and then I think they've now got a operative in Rainbow Six Siege that is just called Sam Fisher, and like they just keep pimping him out to all these other places. Like, just let him have his game. Like, what are you doing? But I mean, a lot of people are waiting for a Splinter Cell. It would be cool if that could come back soon. There is a VR game in the works, but I think it'll be obviously a much smaller experience. So they clearly have remembered they own Splinter Cell, at least. So that's something. I mean, I'll be honest, if Splinter Cell came back, I'd probably want it to be more like the more recent couple. Like, I preferred the action approach of what was it called? Conviction, yeah. And there was one more after Conviction which used a similar mechanic. I prefer those ones, but I am also aware that the original trilogy are really revered as like hardcore stealth games. So love to see Splinter Cell back at some point. And my second one is I would be okay if they found another fun way to do a Nintendo collaboration. Like the Mario and Rabbids game was a fantastic little surprise. So the team that made that, I would love to see them get another chance to work with Nintendo. It doesn't have to be Mario and Rabbids 2. It could be another kind of crossover, or like another, chuck the Rabbids in someone else if you must, even though they were very much the worst part of the Rabbids game. but yeah, that was a really fun collaboration between a lot of people who, clearly had quite a lot of respect for what they were working with. So it's almost more of a Nintendo wish than anything. I liked the way that Nintendo trusted them to make that game. But yeah, that'd be cool. Other than that, that's about it for me. I'm sure we'll get other things like Assassin's Creed and Dance Central. There'll be a dancing panda on the stage, all that kind of crap. Those will all happen. They'll probably show a vague trailer for Beyond Good and Evil 2, even though it doesn't exist. Like, just enough of this now.
Stop lying.
I'm long since over it. Like, I love Beyond Good and Evil 1, and I am long since past caring about this game because it's not even a bloody game. And even the stuff they showed looked like it had nothing to do with the game. Anyway, enough being annoyed about that. I'm sure we'll have a full E3 blowout before it starts where I can complain more. But yeah, look, there's a couple of options there. I'll be watching it because I watch all the conferences, but it's fair to say this is probably one of my least hyped conferences of the weekend.
I can tell you what I don't want them to announce. If they announce like Ubisoft Plus is coming to Game Pass, I would literally kill myself on the spot. And that's not an empty threat. I will just off myself. If the thought of me having to play all of the Assassin's Creed games, even the crap ones, just dread all the Tom Clancy, all the Far Cries. I don't even like Far Cry games, and they're not meant to be bad. They're meant to be the good Ubisoft games. I mean, my God, what an absolute misery that'd be. You'd say, well, at least you could play the Prince. I played the Prince of Persia games. I got nothing to look forward to if that happens. Yeah. Maybe beyond good and evil, but oh man, that would be a nightmare. So not that. That's all I wish. You can announce whatever you want. You can put as many stupid towers to climb as you damn well please. Just do not announce that you're signing a deal with Microsoft, please.
Even look, I like quite a lot of Ubisoft's games. I've played the majority of Assassin's Creed. I fell off Far Cry because we've spoken before. You can only play one Ubisoft game at a time because they're all the same. But even I can't handle Ubisoft coming to Game Pass. I just can't do it. I just can't. They just release the same game 5 times a year. I can't play them all. But anyway, let's move on then. Let's go away from E3 and Ubisoft, and we'll head over to Sony, Josh. So obviously we've been talking a lot in recent weeks about, Sony's kind of really, really crappy decision to shut down the PSP store, the PS3 store, and the Vita store. And, that's led us down a path of just needing to buy up stuff as soon as we can, and it's been challenging. The storefronts have been lagging and crashing, and my PS3 was throwing errors at me saying I'm literally not allowed in the store for days and days. I eventually got in, bought up about £100 worth of PS1 classics. I know you've been going wild on physical releases, which you kind of are buying now in anticipation of the prices spiking when the digital ones aren't available, which is a great call as well. It's a good idea. And so Sony reversed the decision to close the stores, and now they're just staying open anyway. So we just bought a whole bunch of stuff that I don't know about you, Josh, but I really bought this stuff thinking I'll want to play this eventually, so I'll buy it now. It wasn't a thing of like, I can't, I'm not sat there absolutely dying to play the Siphon Filter original trilogy right now, but maybe I'll want to play it in about 10 years' time. That said, I did lose about 2 hours to playing Siphon Filter 1 after I downloaded it. So, maybe I am playing it. But yeah, this has definitely led to some serious money spent, and it was all just a crafty grift, Josh. Just a crafty grift. We just got everyone to buy stuff, and here we are.
It's a big grift. I'll say at the top, I'm glad they've reversed this decision. Yeah. It's the right thing to do. It needed to be done. Some of these, the PS Vita store is not even that bloody old. It had at least a couple of years left in it. So I'm glad they've at least reversed the decision. Is it a grift? They've definitely got a lot of money out of a lot of desperate people. Sony got none of my money, incredibly, because I haven't bought anything off the store yet. That was going to come in a couple of months' time. I did buy a PS3 in anticipation of this, so that was a waste of money. I definitely did not need that. And as you mentioned, I bought a lot of physical Vita games. I expected the price to hike up on further than they already somewhat had. The prices had hiked because people knew they were going to not be available soon. So I was already playing a premium. So I clearly overpaid for a few of these titles. But I guess I'll stomach that when I can look at my Trails of Cold Steel collection and go, I'll never play you, but at least I own you on the PlayStation Vita. So that's something. But yeah, it was an interesting reaction to feel like I'd been somewhat taken for a ride. I'm just glad I didn't go full hog on getting all those PS1 classics.
Yeah, because that's it, right? Like I bought those games because I wanted an easy, convenient way to play them at some point. But also, even while doing this, I kind of made a decision that, like, I'm not planning on buying any like PS3 like digital games unless they're only on the digital storefront. If there's a physical disc, I want to hunt for the disc because, we don't know how long this stuff's going to be available for anyway. They're taking the storefront down. Now they're not, obviously, but they were taking the store down. It's only going to be a matter of years until they take away the console's ability to even connect to a server and download stuff you own. So, you know, at least in your case, you are playing the long game. You've got the physical media. You can actually play those forever. Whereas I've kind of just threw more money into the system that will eventually take these games off me anyway. So it's kind of just money for no reason. It's like, I need to buy these now so I can play them at some point, but also in about 5 years, you will probably stop me anyway. So it's just a completely pointless bit of money spent. But as you said, the right decision was made, which is good. Whether that decision was made because of, you know, like, oh, we were getting really bad PR from this, or whether it was just them looking at the books and going, Jesus Christ, we've sold about 10,000 PS3 copies of, like, you know, like 100,000 sales of Hamster Ball have just come in on PS3. Like, we're going to need to keep the store open. Everyone, by the way, please do check out Hamster Ball on PS3. It's genuinely one of our favorite multiplayer games we've ever played. So yeah, definitely check that one out. But yeah, you know, I feel like it's probably a case of, you know, them looking at all the money coming in here and thinking, you know, people are probably going to keep up buying some stuff for now. You know, it'll drop off again. And then when it drops off again, they'll say, oh, we actually are going to close it. And then this will happen again. We'll just keep going. It'll just be an endless cycle of people. You get to like the year 2200 and they'll be like, we're closing that PS3 store. And then they'll be like, wow, look at all this money. They'll just stay open. But still, it's the right decision for now. I'm happy this is happening. And, you know, I'd imagine we're safe for at least, I'd almost say at least about 2 years from now. You know, I think if they do anything with this store in the next year, people will just be like, well, why did you even bother reversing the decision? So I think we're safe for a good while now, and that's only good things. Always good to have more ways to keep up with these games.
And maybe this will be the turning point, and Sony will start to treasure their back catalogue and treat them with the respect and reverence that they deserve. And if you believe that, you'll believe anything, you big idiot, because they're going to get bored of this.
Yeah, you probably believe Beyond Good and Evil 2 is coming out. I mean, Christ, it's not happening. But yeah, anyway, that's the end of the news this week and the end of the show. So if you want to catch us on social media, you can find us at Beat the Sheet on Twitter. We are always on there posting about all the latest Game Pass news, you know, new additions, leaving soon titles. So good place to catch up on that stuff before the show every week. If you want to drop us an email, we are at beatthesheetpodcast@gmail.com. Always love hearing from you guys. It's always great to hear from you. And yeah, you know, just anything you want to talk about, just send us a message. And yeah, so until next time, I'm Andy Wood, and I'm still on 70% the sheet, which, you know, I'm pretty proud of, pretty happy with that.
And my name is Josh Stevenson, and I am on 60% of the sheet. And I don't feel any sense of pride about that achievement because, let's be honest, it absolutely is not one. But alas, we continue on. The struggle continues for 32 more games, and then I am out of here.
Sounds good, man. Sounds good. Right then, well, thanks a lot for listening this week, guys, and we will catch you next time.